You see, that's culture. Culture, what is it really? If you look at it, in its original form, culture is usually a type of systemized way that human beings develop in order to cope with their environment. That's why the food, for example, the food we eat is usually associated with our culture. And originally, of course, the food is based upon what we could get from the land around us. So the flavor of the food, the taste of the food, the style of the food is based upon what is available. In other words, our culture is influenced by our geography. Whether it is the physical geography, the trees, the plants, the amount of water, so on and so forth. Or it may be the political or social geography. For example, many people's culture is something that is a product of one group of people or one caste of people imposing their authority on another caste of people. Their culture may be based upon that. A system of control. It may be based on a control system, like feudalism in Europe, or for example, like the caste system in India, is a form of control. It is how the Aryans who invaded India controlled the natives. They did this through their culture, through their religion. It is a control system. Similarly, we find this is the case in many cases, a type of control system. So our culture develops from that. How do I behave? What is my attitudes? If I am, for example, an untouchable, I have to behave in a certain way. If I'm a peasant in feudal Europe, there is a certain attitude, I have a certain culture. So this originally, of course, these things have changed in Europe, and in India, they have changed as well. But these are things that stay with people. These ideas, they are very hard to remove. Some of them are survival mechanisms. They are things that people develop in order to be able to survive in their environment. But other things from culture are not to do with that. Some of those things are, you could say, really misguided things. They are wrong things. They are things very detrimental and harmful to the human affairs. And I want to give as an example of culture confusion. And let's see how this relates to us as Muslims. Please, let's look at ourselves. We need to be honest. We Muslims need to look at ourselves. Sometimes it's very nice, we go to a talk and we love to hear someone give a talk where we are attacking another religion. You know, maybe it makes we feel better about ourselves. But being Muslims, we should look at ourselves. Let's take an honest look at myself. Let you take an honest look at yourself, at your life, at your attitudes, and see if maybe comparison between ourselves today as Muslims and another group of people to whom Allah sent a messenger, the Arabs. Let's look at the Arabs. The Arabs before Islam. Most certainly the Arabs before Islam were amongst the most barbaric and backward and primitive people. In fact, in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Allah looked upon the people of the world, the Arab and the non-Arab, and He hated them all, except a few people from the Ahl al-Kitab, a few people from the Jews and the Christians. Because the world was in such a state of corruption, such a state of disobedience to God, they were so far from the guidance that God had revealed. This was their condition, Arab and non-Arab. And the Arabs, as I say, when they are bad, they are really, really bad. And when they are good, they are really, really good. And in the time before the Prophet ﷺ came, they had sunk about as low as the human beings could go. I mean, low, this is how low you can get. How about if you think it's a good thing to take your 5-year-old daughter, 5-year-old, I mean 5-year-old. That's when they are the sweetest, the cutest, they love you the most, they show you the most affection. You take a 5-year-old girl. The night before you went to the desert and you dug a hole in the sand. And you take your daughter and say, we're going for a picnic. Where are we going, Daddy? We're going for a picnic, my daughter. You take your 5-year-old daughter into the desert and you push her into this hole that you have dug and you bury her alive. And you go back to your people and you boast about it. You can't get lower as a human being, much lower than that. You can't get more perverted than that. You can't get something more degenerate than that. These were the people to whom the Prophet ﷺ was sent. This is the stage that they had reached. This is the evil of their religion, and this was their culture. This was their culture, along with the worship of idols, and drinking, and fighting, and feuding. This was their culture, the culture of the Arab before the time of Islam. They call it Jahiliyyah.